Well, Mr. Pugliese, I understand you were born in Kennestone Hospital. That made you pretty vocal, I guess.
Yes.
Why don't you talk a little bit about your background and how you got to Cobb County, Kennesaw, and Ackworth, and all of that?
Well, my parents met actually at the little, my mom worked at the little drugstore in Marietta, Atkins Drug, I think it was called, on the square there. And they met, she worked at the little counter there, and my dad would come in. He was stationed at Dobbins. He'd come in. So they met there and got married a short time afterwards. And then a year and a half later, I came along. But my dad got transferred from there to Oklahoma and then Charleston. And then we ended up in Central America for 3 years, back to Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
God,
and then,
when I see Panama Canal.
yeah, we were in the canal zone for 3 years, which was pretty cool for a 6 or 7 year old, you know, to have summer, year-round summer.
So learn any Spanish while you were down there?
Not much. No, we were on base, so other than our the housekeeper, we didn't really have a whole lot of interaction with people off the base. But and anyway, so my dad retired in 1972, moved back to Kennesaw, and
Why did he do that?
he, my mom's family's from here, and I think he had been in for 23 years. He was just ready to get out and get her back home. So I think
Which town did your mother grow up in?
she was in Marietta for the most part. Her father was a sharecropper, cotton, and so she had 9 siblings.
Oh my goodness.
And they all picked cotton.
Where was the farm?
Well, they were in Marietta. I'm not exactly sure where in Marietta, and then they were over off of Kennesaw due west, where Kennesaw Mountain High School is now, actually on a little farm there for years. And my mom and dad bought a house over there in '76, and she still lives there, but she lives within 100 yards probably of where she used to pick cotton. So.
Wow. So it was your mother that got you back here then?
Yeah, my mother's Cobb County native. She's.
So what was well? You were, of course, you were in Kennesaw and not Ackworth at that time, but you went to North Cobb High School.
Yeah, so we were over actually in West Cobb.
Okay, not either one.
Close to the we were not in the city limits of either. We were out near Stylesboro and Kennesaw due west road, but everybody in the area at that time went to North Cobb. That was in Cobb County. So.
And what year did you start at North Cobb?
I was there from 76, I guess, till 79 or 75 to 79. So, yeah, I went to Alltree Middle School and then to North Cobb. So.
What, did you go to the beach in Ackworth at all?
Yes, sir. That was, Ackworth was where we came to the beach. Day Chevrolet's where we bought our cars. And every August we would come down. My mom would bring me down to Eaton's department store. That's where we got our Levi's and our Croquettes and our flannel shirts for the school year. So that was always a big deal. And then Dunn's, the grocery store, was here as well. So, yeah, we spent a lot of time in Ackworth.
What did you think of Ackworth at that time?
Well, it was our town. That was, and it was very busy back then. I would recall my senior year of high school writing a paper on the parking issues in Ackworth, which ended up being a big issue when I got elected to city council. Working on the parking issue, on the parking issues in Ackworth.
Not that your paper was controversial.
No, my paper wasn't controversial. I'm probably ended up with a C on that, knowing my writing ability. But anyway, so that ended up being an issue that wasn't an issue for a long time and ended up being an issue again after Tommy got elected and kind of brought Ackworth back. And of course, Henry coming to town helped. But
and all of a sudden you had parking problems.
And all of a sudden we had parking problems again. So I ended up getting to deal with that same issue that I wrote a paper on in high school.
Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. And we were talking before we started about you worked for a Volkswagen place during your high school years.
Yeah, I worked for a little VW shop. It was run by Charlie Wells and then a guy named Tennessee. and I can't for the life of me remember Tennessee's last name, but he in Tennessee ran the VW shop, and I was in the work program at North Cobb High School, which was run by Harold Kennedy, and so I'd leave around lunchtime every day and go to the VW shop and work the rest of the afternoon.
What was the work program? Was this for people that weren't thinking about going to college, or?
Yeah, I mean, back then college was, it wasn't everybody's first choice. We had Lockheed, the power company. Those were the jobs people were trying to get when they got out of high school, more than college at that time. I mean, there was obviously some folks that were going to college, but for the rest of us, we were looking to find a good job. And
but you ended up at Southern Tech. Was that straight out of high school, or did you go out and work for a while?
No, I worked. I went down. When I graduated from high school, I went down to the oil fields in Louisiana in the Gulf.
Oh, really?
And worked down there for a little less than a year, which was an interesting experience.
How did that come about?
I met a gentleman. I was dating a girl at the time I graduated from high school, and her father had a friend who was in the Merchant Marines, and he happened to be visiting, and I was over there talking to him, and just sounded interested, and I was ready to get out of Ackworth at the time, 18 years old, and so I hopped on a train out of Atlanta, took the train down to New Orleans, and then a bus from New Orleans to Morgan City, and got on a tugboat and went out about 30 miles out in the Gulf and pulled anchors for pipeline barges for a while. So
good experience.
Oh yeah, it was fun. And then I came back from there and joined the Air Force and spent about a year with basic training and tech school and that type of thing. And then which worked out well because I ended up with the GI Bill, and that's how I was able to go to school after I got back from.
So you had a year of active duty and then the reserves, is that the way?
Yes, and I was in the reserves for the next 22 years.
What did they train you to do?
I was what's called a age mechanic, which is a aerospace ground equipment mechanic, which is the equipment that they use to maintain the aircraft, generators, big hydraulic test stands, all the different equipment, big air conditioners, things like that. So I learned, yeah, and the from working on Volkswagens, which was an air-cooled engine, most of the equipment that in the age shop was air-cooled aircraft engines, old aircraft engines that they were using for this equipment. So I knew pretty good bit when I got there.
What did your father do in the Air Force, by the way?
He was a load master on a C-130.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense to be at Dobbins, huh?
Yep. Yeah, he was in air rescue earlier in his career up in Alaska, and he was in Japan and all over the world really before my mom and he got married. So.
You look like you're still in good shape. Did you play football or basketball?
I did. I played football, and I was an amateur boxer for a long time. Yeah, I started boxing in Panama actually when I was about 7, and then Kennesaw started a boxing team in I think 1976, and so I boxed until my senior year of high school, and then I was playing football as well.
What position?
I played running back some. I sat the bench a lot, and I played a little linebacker on defense. But yeah,
Okay, so you're in the oil fields. You come back. You're in the Air Force. When did you start at Southern Tech?
I started at Southern Tech in 1986, I believe, 85 or 86, I believe it was. So, yeah, and it took me a while to get through there. I was working full time, actually at a contracting company in Decatur, and so I was working full time and going to school at night, and then coming home and studying until time.
Well, the colleges around here, that was pretty typical at that time to be working full time and taking classes when you could and being on the 8-year plan.
Oh yeah, Southern Tech at that time had maybe 50 people that were actually going to school, full time. I think everybody else was working and going to school.
I
So
guess Jim Fawcett was there.
oh yeah,
the time
Jim
you were
was.
there.
Yeah, Jim was one of my professors.
Uh-huh.
The architecture program sure
Had an
was.
interview with him a couple of years ago.
Oh, is that right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what year did you graduate from Southern Poly?
1993. Yeah.
Okay. And you've been working for general contractors and continued to do that for several more years, I guess, before you started out on your own?
Yeah, actually, I was working for a general contractor when I graduated with my degree in architecture, and at that time, to become a licensed architect in the state of Georgia, you had to work under a licensed architect for about 3 years, and for me, that would have required a pretty big cut in pay at the time. So I decided just to stay with the company I was with. And they trained me to be a project manager, and I left there, went to work for a couple of other big general contractors, and then in 1999 I started my own general contracting company.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, sometimes things in life happen for a reason, and I was let go from the general contracting company I was working for in 1999, and so I thought, well, this might be a good time for me to start my own company. So I started small, didn't have a whole lot of money, and just built it from there, and built a pretty good business until 2007, 2008 when the recession hit, and so we went through that and then started over again in about 2012, and it's been good since
So you
then.
had some rough years?
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah, a lot of good lessons. I figured out in life that education's not free, no matter whether you're paying for it in college or you're paying for it with a business. But education's never cheap.
Education was, that part of your education was with the business. Then.
Yeah, it was expensive education. So.
But you managed to pay the bills for a while.
Yes, we got through it. It's ups and downs in life are something you just have to live with.
Well, it sounds like your company does a lot of home improvement projects. Is that?
We do a lot of we do a lot of commercial work. We do a lot of work with private schools. For years, we built restaurants, and then we went through a phase
We
where
built restaurants?
yes, and then there was a phase where we were doing a lot of hotel renovations for a number of years there, and then that kind of went away, and so we have been doing a lot of private school work, and then I just love working on old houses. I've done a few renovations here in Ackworth of properties that I've bought, renovated and sold, but
It's
now
a
we
good place to do historic preservation.
oh yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've done some houses in Kennesaw as well. In fact, I'm working on the Lewis house in Kennesaw right now. Yeah, renovating it. So
Talk about that a little bit.
well, the Lewis house was built about 115 years ago. And the developer who's building the apartment complex around it, one of the stipulations I guess Kennesaw had was that they had to keep the Lewis house. And of course it's been in disrepair for a while, hadn't really been kept up. So they didn't want to try to do it themselves as apartment builders, so they knew my history and my experience, so they hired us to renovate the Lewis house, and it's going to be basically their community center for the apartment complex. So they're going to have a game room and a kitchen, some meeting space, and some offices. So we're in the process.
How big is the house?
It's about 2,500 square feet, two-story, Victoria. It sits up on the hill. Most people in Kennesaw are familiar with the Lewis house because it's on Lewis Street, which was named after the Lewises, who I guess originally had the house, which was probably a farmhouse at the time it was built, but now it sits in the middle of town. So.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, we've got a 1930s house. Might have to have you work on that sometime.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of those too. I spend a lot of time on, and I enjoy that. It's not usually a big profit center for us, but it's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing that kind of work.
That's not what pays the bills.
No, that doesn't pay the bills. The commercial work is much easier to make a profit at than these old houses, because there's always so many unknowns, so many hidden things in these old houses that you can't really anticipate. So,
You said that one of your fondest memory is the 4th of July concert in Ackworth. Did y'all go to the 4th of July concert every year?
yeah, when they started doing the 4th of July, doing the 4th of July concerts in Ackworth, I think that was probably right around 99, 2000, something like that. And my daughter was born in 2000. And so we would bring her even as a baby to the concert. And of course, we still go to the 4th of July concert every year. Yeah, one of my favorite memories, and I think it was 2002. My dad and mom actually came down and went to they were still living in Kennesaw, but and my father passed away the next year, so it was a good memory how it's been 4th of July. I believe if I remember correctly, it rained pretty hard right before the concert, and we all ended up under the table with the tablecloth over us. But it all cleared up, and everything was it was all good. So.
May not have been the fondest memory at the time.
No, it probably didn't. But looking back on it, it was and really the last 4th of July I got to spend with my dad.
So I guess you were living in Ackworth by that time?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I moved back to Ackworth when I started my business in 99. And actually, I lived over in Cobb County, right where Allatoona High School is, right across from Allatoona High School. I had built a house over there, so I wasn't far from Ackworth. But
so that area is inside the city limits?
No, it's not inside the city limits. It's an Ackworth address, but it's actually unincorporated Cobb over there. So when I decided to start my business, I bought a house up on Main Street and renovated it and moved back to Ackworth. Oh, okay. So been here ever since.
How old was the house?
That one was built in the 1930s.
Okay.
We had to do quite a bit of work on it to get it livable, and so I lived there until right around 2002. I bought a house over on Collins Avenue. One of what's the
when the Keno complex?
Keno, yeah, one of the Keno homes, the manager's homes there.
Oh, really?
On Collins Avenue, and renovated it.
So you're across the street from Abbey Park. So.
Oh yeah, Abbey was my neyghbor. Still is, actually. And so,
those were Lila, what's a Welburn? Lila something?
Yep.
Welburn?
Leela Wilburn. Leela Welburn was the architect you're talking about? Yeah. Yeah, she designed those houses.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was so I bought that house, renovated it, and moved in there and lived there until the recession hit, and just had to sell it and move. But
oh, you did?
Yeah. I owned at that time quite a bit of rental property in Ackworth, so I sold that house and moved into one of my rental houses and lived there for a while.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, now that's about the time that you ran for the Board of Aldermen, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
07 and. I guess you ran right before you knew that everything was going to collapse.
Well, yes, absolutely. Yeah, 07 was Tommy Alligood actually came to me and said that Doug Allen was going to be resigning and asked me if I'd be interested in running for alderman. I had never thought about being a politician at that point, but I loved my city. I loved Ackworth, so I said, sure, I'll give it a shot. So we had probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, campaign. It's a really...
You had an opponent in that race?
Oh yeah, Brett North was running against me at the time.
Okay.
So it was a pretty tough campaign, very close, ended up in a runoff. Yeah, that took about 9 months of my life that were pretty intense. So.
Why do you think Tommy Allgood asked you to run? Were you involved in a whole lot of civic activities at that
Yeah, I
time?
was, I always try to stay involved in Ackworth, and a lot of the people here I know, I grew up with, and there was some things that Ackworth was facing, challenges that Ackworth was facing that Tommy thought I could help with, and so, yeah,
You have a platform that you ran on, or?
well, I think my tagline was hometown. What was it? Hometown business smart. I remember was the second part of it.
Business.
Home, yeah. Wow, I wish I could remember that. It's on one of my, it was on my sign.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the platform. Was a hometown boy, and I knew business.
Like
And
hometown feel, but business smart.
yeah, so that was the platform we kind of ran on. But
That's the way you saw Ackworth?
oh yeah, and I still do. I mean, the great thing about Ackworth is even the people that come here adopt it as their hometown. As Tommy Allgood has, and many others that have come to town, Henry Chandler, and people who didn't grow up here, but who, when they get here, they kind of adopt it as their hometown, and that's what I love about it. Is it's still a small hometown feel in Ackworth, despite being. I think the population's more than doubled since I got here, back to Ackworth in 99.
1999, that's about the time that the city really begins to grow again,
Yep.
the downtown area.
Yeah, when I moved back here in 1999, you could probably roll a bowling ball down Main Street on a Saturday night and not hit a thing. But yeah, it's really made a transition, and it's really amazing.
Yeah, I guess Marcia Andruzzi was mayor at the time you got here, and then
Yep.
Tommy not too long after
Yeah,
that.
Tommy was elected right around that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you talk a little bit about being on the Board of Aldermen and what you think are your proudest achievements in the last 12 years?
Well, the great thing about this board, and the thing I've enjoyed the most is the camaraderie among the board members. They're very, nobody has a personal agenda. Everybody is focused on the same thing, and that's doing what's best for the city of Ackworth. And that's a rare thing to find in boards. I've been on a few boards in my life, church boards and college boards and that type of thing. But to find a group that's so focused and doesn't have an agenda of their own, and so it's been very easy. Not that we always agree on everything, but we always seem to be able to come to a consensus on what's best for the citizens of Ackworth. And so to have this vision of where we wanted Ackworth to go, and to watch that vision come to fruition over the last 10 years has been amazing. And I look
Talk
forward.
about the vision.
Well, our vision was a vibrant downtown, a quality of life that that the people here, keeping our tax rate low, not having to raise taxes in order to do that, which was a real challenge during the recession. Because of the property values dropping and obviously our revenue dropping, and having to try to keep that vision going and keep things moving through that was a real challenge. But this group of guys that we have on city council are dedicated, they're smart, they're frugal, they know how to and so we were able to work through it. And so the development on the other side of the tracks has been great to watch. That whole area redevelopment, what we call Parkside now, and
You call that Parkside?
Parkside,
Because of the parks over there?
right? Yeah, we've got
I wanted to talk about that because Ackworth's probably got more park land than any 24,000 people city that I know about.
Yes, we have more than any other city in the state of Georgia, actually. And
How did that all come about?
well, it was a dedication to, to commitment to green space. We wanted to make sure that we maintain some green space in the city, and being the lake city, parks are part of what this city's been about for my whole life. I remember as a kid, we would come down to the beach, and we had a big slide down there, and the beach house, and everybody would hang out at the beach house, and there was a concession stand. And so parks have been a part of Ackworth since I was a kid, and I think that we wanted to maintain that and keep the park space growing. I think too, the walkability of our city is important, that people can move around the city on bikes, or we've recently adopted a golf cart ordinance, which allows people to go around the city on a golf cart.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir. So that all has helped in keeping people interactive with each other. Where our police department in the summer, they ride bikes and get downtown and are involved with the people of the city. And so all of that was a part of our vision. And another part of that vision was bringing the churches and the schools and government together for the good of getting things done. And that's been an important part. Those partnerships have been an important part of making that vision happen in Ackworth. So
How much new parkland has the city purchased since you've been on the Board of Aldermen?
Well, we've converted a lot more than probably what we've purchased. Converted, land that was core property into parkland. Yeah, we've got a lot of core property that's parks.
Would be the area around the lake.
Yeah, and it's Tommy knows the exact number. I never do, but it's in excess of 100 acres of parkland in the city of Ackworth. So,
now, what about the expansion across the railroad tracks?
Well, that's a big part of our parkland. The Logan Farm Park and then Tanya Creek Park are all on that park side of the city.
Has the city owned that property for a long time?
Well, we've leased from the Corps of Engineers.
That's Corps of Engineers.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, and that's been a process either, and also, the Dallas Landing is another core property that we lease and maintain. So we've been able to. Southside, another one, Southside Park on the other side of Lake Ackworth is another park that we have leased from the Corps of Engineers and maintained. So,
was it controversial to renovate the Logan farmhouse and all of that?
No, I think it was. I don't think anybody was opposed to making that happen. But it took a long time, because back when Abby Parks and I started talking about that, and other people in the city, it wasn't just us, but I just remember those conversations back in 99, 2000 about the Logan farmhouse. And back then we didn't have the resources to do it, and it was through Tommy's leadership and then some other folks that have been here at the city, Brian Bultice, that we've been able to learn how to use SPLOST dollars, learn how to use grants, and other sources for getting the money to do these kind of projects. So we've been very successful with that.
Well, I think it's neat that Ackworth has done some things with the African American community too, with the old Rosenwald School, and then across the street, I guess, is the Art Center. Which was a historically black-owned house.
Well, and that was important to us, because that area of town, when I was growing up, was primarily African American part of the city, and so it was important to us to maintain, the churches that were there and that African American heritage on that side of the city, and so, but yes, that was always an important part of the plan. The overall plan was to make sure that was incorporated into to our
Of course,
plans
the
over
city
there.
uses the Roberts School a lot too.
Oh yeah, the Roberts School has been a great resource for us. You know, a lot of the things that have been going on there will probably be doing to the new community center that's being built in Ackworth. But
Talk about that a little bit, the community center.
well, that was another vision that we had. We wanted a community center in Ackworth, and fortunately, we were able to partner with Cobb County and do that project. And it's going to be a great addition to our city, a place where people in the city can go and exercise and learn and spend time together. We're also going to have a nice banquet hall there that we can have functions that bring people to the city. And obviously, you know, heads in beds is important to us as far as the tourism.
Heads and beds.
That's right, because that puts money in our pocket, you know. So that's an important thing that Abbey Parks has kind of taught me, is to pay attention to those things, you know. So because tourism's done a lot for our city. You know, the tourism commission hired the Finning marketing group, the group that does our marketing for the city, and they've committed to doing that and paying for it, and it's really paid off. It's really made a difference in our downtown over the past 4 or 5 years. So
It looks like the Ackworth is building a lot for retirees and what is Tommy call them, the active adults?
well, yeah, he calls them the active adults. He originally called it the senior tsunami that was coming, and but then he decided that when we get to be our age, we don't want to call them seniors anymore. We'd rather call them active adults. So now it's active adults, but.
But there's been a lot of that. Was that part of a conscious plan?
Yes, that was part of a plan to make sure that we took care of those people and that we kept them in Ackworth. You know, we didn't want to lose those people. You know, you've got a lot of people that had moved into Brookstone and that area out there that were people that we were marketing to for Ackworth, to come to Ackworth and spend money and eat and dine and shop and all those things. But a lot of those people were getting older as a baby boomer generation. And so to get them a place to go in Ackworth was...
They didn't need a huge house in Brookstone?
No, they didn't want to take care of a big yard anymore, or, you know, didn't need, you know, the kids are gone. You don't need 4,000 square foot anymore. So we've been able to get Walton Communities and a couple of others to come here and do some, you know, quality senior projects that have allowed our active adults to come back to Ackworth.
Well, it's like old days Chevrolet has gone that way.
Oh yeah, it's
with the development.
That's turned into quite a accomplishment. And you know, for Days Chevrolet, to sit there as long as it did empty, you know, and the commitment of the gentleman who bought that and stuck with it and through the recession and made that project happen. But really a neat thing to have in our downtown.
Well, you listed Tommy Allgood as a mentor, and I think you've explained why probably already today. Maybe Abby would be a mentor too.
Oh yeah, Abby's definitely.
What about Ben Flanagan?
I think Ben Flanagan is probably one of my favorite people in Ackworth. I think Ben exemplifies what Ackworth citizens are all about. You know, he's a hometown guy who is committed to his city, community service. Not only community service, he was a neighbor of mine, and I can tell you, as a neighbor, he's always willing to help out his neighbors and whatever they need. You know, and he and Sylvia are just fantastic people. Sylvia's, you know, another one that's will, you know, give you the shirt off her back if that's what you need. But they just exemplify what Ackworth, what I love about Ackworth, and that's people that care about other people. You know.
Well, we've got interviews with both Ben and Sylvia.
Yeah.
So, you also mentioned Moose McRae.
Moose McRae, yeah.
Him.
Well, you know, when I told you I worked at the VW shop, Moose McRae, back then, he used to race Volkswagens, dune buggies, really. And so I got to know Moose back then. But when I came back to Ackworth in '99, told you at the time I had some rental houses, so I had dealt with his father in buying some of his rental property, and through that I met Moose, reconnected with Moose, and he has just been a treasure trove of history of Ackworth. Just he knows everything that's happened in Ackworth. Really good guy. And I think he really cares about the city, loves the city of Ackworth, loves the people of Ackworth, and he's a neat guy. So.
Well, is anybody ever going to run against anybody on the council again? Do you think?
Well, I'm sure they will eventually.
You called off the last election, didn't you?
We've called off the last 3 or 4 actually.
So you got elected in a hotly contested race in 2007.
Right.
11, 15. Let's see, 19 is going to be one this year.
Yes, sir. I'll be.
But the last 2 you didn't have any opposition.
Correct.
So 19.
Yeah.
You going to run again?
Yeah, I'm gonna do one more term. I just want to see this project through. This vision that we had for Parkside. I think we probably a couple of years away from being able to finish that up. So I plan on doing one more term if God willing, and the citizens of Ackworth will allow me.
Of course, it falls a long way away, but I gather nobody's running against you yet.
No, nobody's announced, but I've heard some rumors, so you never know about that kind of thing. I don't really worry so much about that. It's like I tell my wife, it's in God's hands, and if God wants me to be on city council for another 4 years, then I'll get elected, and if God wants got something else for me to do, then I won't. So.
Well, you can keep quality service contractors going.
Yeah, that keeps me plenty busy, and I have no intention of retiring from there anytime soon. So,
well, what should we have talked about that we haven't today? What would you like to add?
I think we've covered everything. I just, when it comes to the history of Ackworth, when James contacted me and said, you want to do a history interview, I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm a young guy, what do you need to talk to me about the history of Ackworth? But then I start thinking back to, 30, 35 years ago and being downtown Ackworth. And I think it's just,
let's see, you'd be late 50s by now, I guess.
Yeah, I'll be 58 next month.
Okay.
So
still a young guy.
But yeah, I think just remembering, it's fun for me to remember the days when you come to Ackworth, you go to the grocery store, or you would go to the skating rink up at Fun Run, or you would go to Eaton's department store, and you knew everybody shopping in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of fun. That was a great time. And of course now I very rarely see anybody that I know in the grocery store, but back then you knew everybody in town. And that was a great way to live. And that's what I love about living downtown, is that I know most of the people downtown. I can walk into any of the shops downtown or the restaurants, and I know people there, and I like that feel. And it's
When you mentioned a daughter born, late 90s or early 2000s?
She was born in 2000.
2000.
Yeah, and
she's going to be 19.
She's at KSU. She's
okay.
Yeah, she's at KSU.
What's she majoring in?
She's in biology. She wants to be a veterinarian. So she's in the biology program over there. And then I've got a son that's still in high school. He's 17. So.
At North Cobb?
He's actually at Kennesaw Mountain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he lives with his mother, and they're in the Kennesaw Mountain District. So.
Okay. So, and your wife, is she from this area?
Yeah, my wife is actually went to North Cobb High School. She was a little younger than I was. She was probably three or 4 years behind me. But I've known her. I went to high school with her brother, so I've known her my whole life. But yeah, we were we were in high school together, and she's been in Ackworth her whole life as well.
So this is the place to stay.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to leave as eager as I was to get out of Ackworth when I was 18 years old and see the world. And through the Merchant Marines and the military, I've seen the world. And
Seen all you wanted to say.
and I would rather be right here in Ackworth. Of all the places I've ever been and all the places I've ever seen, still this is home, and this is where I want to be. So.
Well, maybe that's a good place to end the interview then.
Well, I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Thank
Thank you.